Hello everyone, this is Darkest Hour Reads, and today I want to review Bunny by Mona Awad. I hope that I'm pronouncing the author's name correctly. Please let me know if I don't. But yeah, this book is actually quite interesting because it is the first satire book that I have ever read or that I have memory of reading. And yeah, I have a lot to say about this, so let's start. So, as always, we start with a summary of the book for those who haven't read it. So, the main character, Samantha, is a very edgy, very traumatized, low class kind of person who gets granted the opportunity to study in University of Warren in basically studying a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing. And basically we see her life through her lens, basically how studying in Warren in this very Ivy League type of university, and also living in around that area, which is very, very poor, very rough, and basically her matching the aesthetic, or like matching the life of being very poor, living in that city and just being miserable, to studying and having the opportunity to live and to experience the Ivy League life with other students that are well off, well beyond their means, and just basically studying with an all-female cohort with other four students who are called or call themselves the bunnies because they call each other bunny all the time. So it's how her experience of actually not fitting into this Ivy League school or Ivy League type of life, and this not being able to relate or to be able to be friends with these students with the of her own cohort, basically. And it gets quite gruesome for some reason. So at first you start just living through her life, just experiencing her being poor or her having friends who also don't fit in, so like the character Ava, and then just her having the opportunity to hang out with those bunnies, those very white, privileged, high class girls who are also part of the creative writing masters as well, but obviously they didn't get the scholarship, but the parents paid for it or they paid for it themselves. And it's just like her trying to survive all these weird situation, basically. And then during the hangout, we see that the bunnies not only start getting overly sexual, but also they start getting quite aggressive or quite weird in this sense. And basically they finish the ritual by killing a bunny, a white red-eyed bunny, the classic bunny that you see all the time. And basically Samantha is over there just drunk out of her nuts and just very confused about what is going on. And obviously she doesn't really understand what is happening, and basically she believes that all of these, she has imagined all of this because she's drunk, or she doesn't really know how to act into these situations. So basically she passes out, and the bunnies give her some pills or some drugs that I don't really know what they are, but that, yeah, they just give her some drugs in order to keep her calm. And it's just basically her Samantha getting into these rituals or getting into these parties, and then just basically hanging out with the bunnies, and for I would say it's 2-3 months, and just slowly getting into turning from the edgy type of girl that doesn't fit into one of the bunnies, and she becomes the fifth member of the bunnies. And then afterwards she basically, her friend Ava disappears for some reason as well, and out of nowhere she just basically realizes that all of this is very wrong, that she should stop herself, she should stop hanging out with the bunnies because they are dangerous, because they are just not only killing animals but also killing people for some reason. Yeah, if you read the book it makes all sense, but trying to explain what bunny is very, very complicated. But yeah, just see the bunnies do these rituals in order to get into the creative mood to write and to inspire themselves. They kill animals, they kill bunnies, they kill people, and then Samantha realizes that she doesn't want to be part of these, and that it's not okay, and that basically her having ingesting the pills made her complacent and made her part of the bunnies, and then decides to just break it off, and then something crazy happens. And yeah, at the end of the day, she ends up graduating. She doesn't hang out with the bunnies anymore, and basically Ava is dead, this and that. I will explain more about what is going on, but the it's just so hard to explain this book. But yeah, that's the summary in general. Just basically her being edgy and not fitting in, her being part of the bunnies, and then just her becoming her old self and graduating. After that, weird and crazy summary, because even myself, I understand that I explain myself really poorly. It's just because it's so hard to actually explain this book literally. I also really struggled with understanding what was going on around here, right? I read this book in like 3 days because I was just so hooked into what was going on. But yeah, I still, like, after finishing the book, I was still as lost as when I first started it. I was like, I don't really know what is going on. So I decided to go into Reddit, go into Goodreads, and just started looking into what other people were saying, right? Other readers were saying. I saw really cool, interesting theories. Some people thought, or people are convinced, that Samantha, the character, is like someone with schizophrenia or someone with psychosis, and then just basically her imagining all these experiences because of the trauma that she has, right? Like her mom passing away, her being lonely, her being extremely poor, which I think it makes a lot of sense. The fact that she created, like, she having schizophrenia and her actually imagining all of it in order to escape reality, right? I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think it's a really cool theory. But then I was thinking about it, and there are some things that don't really add up to that theory, and I just started looking into the author's interviews, right, about this book. And I found one where she actually does an interview with her former university, so her former college, Brown, where she actually studied a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing, and that's where she wrote her first book. And then I was thinking about it. Sorry, there was a bug. I was thinking about it, and then for some reason, like, a light bulb just came out into my brain, and I started ruminating on it. And my theory is that this book is actually meant to be read as satire, and this book is meant to be read as critique of the same Masters of Fine Arts that she actually did. Let me explain, because in my brain it makes a lot of sense. First things first, obviously we have to take into account that I would not expect Mona, the author, to actually go and start killing animals and start killing people, because that would be really weird. But how I view this book is that Mona, is actually explaining her experience whilst studying these masters, basically, whilst being a student, especially in an Ivy League university like it's Brown, right? So when I was reading her interview, I kept seeing how she was saying, oh, you need to take things literally, you need to do this, or my experience at Warring during that masters was definitely a trip. And I think that was the part that actually gave it away for me, and it's the sense that she was saying that she really struggled with just basically showing herself, showing her vulnerability within other students during her masters, right? Because apparently during her studies, she had to actually write things and just show them to the public for criticism. And also at the same time, she had to write things that would make her vulnerable, right, as a person, which is something that she said that she really struggled with, and her being able to just get naked, figuratively, of course, get naked in front of people and actually just pour her heart out towards other students that maybe she didn't know, obviously was something that she really struggled with. And that's something that we see with Samantha. That is the main thing that we see, like the main topic, right? The fact that she has her own dramas, her own experiences, her own trauma, and her just obviously writing it as a way to escape from her reality, from her world, but actually not being able to show it to people, right? Or her everyone around her explaining or feeling that her writing is very, well, her writings are very aggressive, very dark, very gory, very depressing, right? Like that's what they always say. Like that's what Bunnies and Fosco, the author, not the author, the professor, always say, that they are very, very into her dark energy, which I think is something that Mona experienced. But obviously I could be wrong. I'm not Mona. I don't know her, so I could be completely wrong. Sorry guys, I just had to change locations a little bit because my light decided to pass away, so now I have to charge it. But yeah, that's what happens when you are unprepared. But yeah, going back into the summary, well, into the analysis, yeah, I say that this book is just satire, good or critique of her experience, right? And then I started thinking about the characters and what they actually mean, right? Because if you actually are trying to make a critique of something or something that you have experienced, obviously the characters have to mean something, or they usually mean something. And what I think, and obviously this could just be me, I could be so far off, but what I think is happening, right, is that all the characters that they invent, so all the darlings, or Max, Ava, all the characters that are not within these masters, within the cohort, or the professors themselves, I think they are writing ideas, right? So as a writer, usually what you do is when you write a book, or like when you start writing a book, you have this very specific idea, this vibe that you're trying to emanate from this book, right? So for example, the best example that I have is Donna Tartt. How I view it is that her the vibes that she wants to emanate from any books are very dark academia-esque, right? Like she's trying to evoke these feelings of 90s dark academia, just murders, thrillers, things like that, right? Like that's what she's trying to emanate. So, and I think that's something that happens with many writers. I don't want to say all writers because obviously I don't have the experience, but with many writers, even myself, for example, as someone that enjoys writing as a hobby, I would say that the idea is that when you first get this idea or this thing that you want to write, right, you always get this very clear image in your head of what you want to write, and then when you put the effort, when you start writing, then that's when you actually give a structure, that's when you actually create something, right? Like it's not just your idea in your head, but basically all the efforts and all the sub ideas and then structure that you actually create. So in this sense, when you think about it, right, I would say that Ava is the best example of this perfect idea that someone has, or that Samantha would have, of a book as a writer, right? So if you think about it, it's like Ava is perfectly edgy, perfectly doesn't fit in. She has the perfect fuck you ideas or fuck you vibes, right, from her. And I think that is something that Samantha wants or wanted to emanate from these from all her writings, in the sense of she the heroine, or the vibe that she wants or that she has in all her writing ideas is, I am damaged, I am very poor, very low class, but still I'm kicking ass here and I'm just surviving, and I'm just basically telling fuck you to everyone else because I'm still surviving. Like, I still survive no matter what, right? I think that's the idea that Samantha has for for all her writings, right? That's why they will always say that the bunnies and Fosco and all the professors will always say that her writings are very oppressive, very dark, because Ava herself, the main idea that Samantha has for all her writings are very dark, are very, very aggressive. And then obviously Samantha starts hanging out with the bunnies, who are also other writers that have like maybe not as much talent or as much raw talent as Samantha does, which is something that is made very, very obvious during the whole book, right? And I would say that the other writers, so the bunnies, and also Fosco as well, for some reason, it feels like they are these white, privileged, very high class or very upper class kind of people who have never had to face reality, or like what the world actually is when you are not privileged. And they are this kind of like waspy alternative girls, right? Like, I see it as the raw manic pixie dream girls, but make it privileged, right? And it just makes a lot of sense when you see what they actually write about, right? Or what they actually find inspiring, because oh my god, this is just going to be a whole, like, this is going to be like fourth dimension level kind of what's the name, kind of idea, right? And I could be completely wrong, but that's how I interpreted it, right? The first thing that I have to say is that Fosco gives me bunny vibes, right? In the sense of, I would say she is the fifth bunny, because she just enables them and she just supports them, because I think she's a bunny herself, right? So not a proper bunny, but like just someone that has this same feeling. So in this sense, I would say the bunnies and Fosco are this kind of very privileged girls or very privileged women that just basically have gotten everything because of the power that they have, which is money, right? And then obviously they get into these schools because they can afford it, they can pay for it. And really the only traumatizing or the only experience that they have with real life world is them being women, right? The only privilege that they don't have is that they are not men. So in this sense, it makes a lot of sense for me that they tap into such huge feminine energies or feminine ideas or sexual ideas, because that is the only experience that they have in being underprivileged. Because at the end of the day, the bunnies and Fosco and Samantha are all women, and obviously they are considered minorities. So in the same way that we see Samantha writing about all her trouble, all her trauma, and all her traumatic life experiences, the bunnies and Fosco write about feminine experiences or like sexual experiences or encounters as a way to tap into these trauma, into these making the writings make sense, or actually making them meaningful. That's why I will always say that the bunnies were so obsessed with sex in general. And even Fosco herself, she will call the workshops, or like the place where they do the workshops, she will call them the cave, and she will call it the cave, which is also another name for the uterus or the womb in general, right? So in this sense, it just makes a lot of sense that they are so obsessed with it. And also, when I think about it, right, when I started first thinking about this review, I was also thinking that the darlings themselves, so all the men that they turn, so all the animals that they turn into men, and they turn into like all these imperfect, animalistic, weird kind of animals or kind of men, which it gives me like, it gave me a little bit of a heebie-jeebies, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, basically all these darlings, I would say, are imperfect ideas of pigs, right? Or like imperfect ideas of their own writings, which is like, it makes a lot of sense. It's like imagine, you know, when you read a romance book that has no substance, that you're just reading it because A, you want the smut, B, you just want to like just pick those what's the name, those tropes that you like, and then you just literally forget about it in like 2 months because it had no substance whatsoever. That's what I think the darlings are. Like, if you think about it, right, the men, the darlings, because they weren't even boys, like we shouldn't be considering boys, that's how they would say it all the time. The darlings are actually just very specific type of men, that the only thing they had was these very specific type of characteristics, or very limited personality traits that would the first one would be being obsessed with the person, right? So it just gives the vibes of those character tropes, or like those specific characters in romance, where it's just like the only personality trait is that one thing that makes them different. Like, oh, I'm a hockey player, or oh, I'm a F1 driver, or oh, I'm I don't know, a lumberjack, whatever you prefer or whatever you like, right? So in this sense, how I view it, or like the vibes that I got, is that the author, Mona, basically went into this master's degree with the idea of her refining her art, and then getting into a class, or like getting into her classes and just being like, okay, I'm here in order to try to be better at my art. And then I find myself that I have to be vulnerable. I just have to just show my inner guts to everyone, which I don't really want to do, because it is obviously hard for someone to be openly vulnerable. It's not something that humans like to do anyways. And then B, at the same time, whereas I am trying to be vulnerable and just showing my trauma, there's all these other people that are just here in order to create stories that have no meaning, just romance stories that have no sense, that are like not even interesting plot wise, and we are just creating in literature these books that have no inner depth, right? So they are asking her to be, or like they will ask her to be vulnerable, but at the same time the literature world is just constantly supporting authors, or supporting people that are not even authors, or have no interest in actually making good literature, just creating something out of nowhere for people to enjoy and have no depth whatsoever. And then obviously we see when Samantha starts hanging out with the bunnies, that Ava disappears, obviously because the idea that she has, or like that that Samantha has of a good book or a good writing idea disappears, because people tell her that is not good enough, or like that is not what people are looking for, right? Not what the literature world is looking for, or what people could be interested in. So therefore she starts hanging out with the bunnies. Ava disappears, and then she creates something new, which is Max, right? This new idea of dark romancy type of character that is like very wolfish, very tall, tattoos, dark, smokes, this and that, whatever. Which I think it was very smart. I'm not gonna lie. The fact that Samantha creates Ava, which is the writing idea of like something meaningful, or like something very defensive, to actually creating something that she thinks that people will enjoy, which is a dark romance, which we know, if you are on Tumblr, not on Tumblr, if you are, but Tumblr as well, if you are on TikTok or on Instagram, Twitter or Tumblr or anything, like if you are in the book community, within the book community, no matter what it is, you know that people are obsessed with dark romance, and you know what kind of romance we're talking about. Like, it's not, oh, I'm a bad boy. No, it's like, I'm gonna sexually assault you. That is the kind of romance that we see. So in this sense, it just makes a lot of sense that she creates Max, because it's like this dark feeling of, no, this feeling of wanting to be wanted by someone that is not evil, but is like morally gray, you know? So that's why Samantha creates Max, because she sees that obviously her main idea is not enjoyable, or it's not something that people want to read. So therefore she tries to just create this thing, like this idea, or this create Max out of Ava. So she creates Ava, then meets the bunnies, and then creates Max as a way of actually, instead of creating something dark just out of myself, out of my vulnerability, I'm gonna create Max, which also makes me vulnerable, because it makes, like, it shows people that I actually have issues, because I like these dark romance, but I make it attractive, I make it sexually appealing for people. And then obviously, as we see, everyone is obsessed with Max. All the girls, all the bunnies are just running or like ramming towards Max, because they want this ideal, right? Like they not only they feel attracted to Max directly, but I think they also try to get into Max, or like to get this idea of Max, because that's what they want to write about, right? Because we all know how much women, or like how much readers in general, like this dark romance type of idea. Like everyone is obsessed with the a-hole type of character, right? We see it in dark fantasy, we see it in fantasy in general, we see it in romance, we see it in science fiction. Everyone likes the kind of bad boy that is like, I'm a bad boy but not really a bad boy, because I'm an asshole but not to you, right? Everyone, all the girls like this kind of character, even myself included. I'm not gonna lie, like I am as guilty as you guys. But yeah, we see this idea of the perfect idea of the guy that is like edgy but not edgy enough for us to make it off-putting. And also he's tall, he's very wolfish, like he has like dark eyes, dark features, tattoos. So it's just like she just makes a whole character, I'm not gonna lie. And then I will also say, apart from making Max the ideal character for a book, I would say it also represents the idea of how when someone creates a good idea, or someone brings a good idea into the literary world that is actually interesting, right? We see all these other writers just literally jumping out of their comfort zone, and or like the things that they are used to write, to like they literally jump from that to this new idea in order to also get a benefit out of it, like a monetary benefit. This is why we see many people writing normal good romance, like the good old romance that we see, to basically edgy romance, like dark romance, because dark romance gives money, right? And like we see all the time, we see how in the 80s, like I have a video about it, about tropes, like if you want to see it you can see it on my channel. But we see how in the 80s the main idea was, oh well, let's just create fantasy romance, where just basically someone is a damsel in is the main character is a damsel in distress, and then there's like this character that just saves her, and it's like a hunky sexy kind of guy, right? Like the typical pirate, like the typical 80s romance book that we all have read, or like we all read when we were like 13, right? And then now we have all these like hockey, basketball, American football, F1 drivers. Like we have like these very specific, very curated type of male character, right? So we see it all the time. We see how someone gets a new idea, and then everyone just seems to jump onto that in order to like basically follow the train of what is trendy, what people like, what people are paying for, right? Instead of actually creating something or some like creating a book or something out like of value. Basically it's just let's just jump onto what is the next trend, instead of actually creating something that actually is meaningful. And now getting into the discussion, even though I have literally said practically everything in the analysis, I have to say that personally I loved this book. I thought it was really cool from the start, like the gore, all the horror, all the weird things that are happening, I think were really cool. I think Mona Awad is incredible at horror. Please, Mona, keep writing horror, because this is just so good. And also, I after finishing the book, I was just a little bit confused. Well, it's not a little bit. I was really confused. I'm not gonna lie, and I didn't really know what to think about this book. But then, after ruminating and after actually writing the review, I was like, oh, hold on, this book is actually so much better than I actually thought. Not only because of the way that she writes satire in general, but I would say that what I enjoy the most is the fact that this book is literally a big oh fuck you to everyone. Not only to the people from the master's degree, for example, like all these people that actually have the need to show that they have a title, that they are experts at something, in order to validate themselves or to validate their own opinions. Because I don't know about you guys, but I don't think you need to be like professionally a writer in order to actually write something good. You can be literally practically an alphabet and create something meaningful, because the meaning is like, I think a good like something that is good writing wise or literary wise comes from the feelings that you evoke as a writer, rather than the words that you use, or like rather than how you express yourself, right? And this is something that we see in Bunny. Also at the same time, I think it's a great fuck you to the contemporary literary world, I would say, as of now, because obviously I might be biased, and this could be just my opinion, because I am a nostalgic and I might be a little bit petulant. I do understand that. But I think that in our contemporary, like right now in our era, we have lost the true meaning of literature, right? Basically, as someone that enjoys classics, I feel like when I read a classic, it actually evokes what the author was trying to mean, in the sense of, when I read, for example, Dostoevsky, or when I read Mary Shelley, I see what they are trying to convey, right? I see that they are trying to explain the reality that they had, they were living, the trauma that they felt, or the horrible situation that their country, themselves, their family were in, right? Whereas now, I read a book, I might be just biased in general again, but now when I read a contemporary book, the vast majority of the books that I read is like, I read it and then I'm like, cool story, bro. Like, okay, what else, right? This happens quite often for me for some reason, even like that. I think it's specifically with the contemporary books that I get recommended in the book community or within the book community. Donna Tartt, for example, If We Were Villains, If We Were Villains, The Secret History, what else? I don't know, any romance type of book that I get recommended. All of them have no substance whatsoever. Maybe there is like, oh, let's lightly touch about this topic that makes a lot of sense in this environment. Like, for example, If We Were Villains, we talk about drugs. That's it. Like, we talk about this, like we literally handpick what we want to talk about instead of actually giving a good context, right? And I think it's because we have this sense of we don't want to be vulnerable as writers, which I also get myself, right? I think it's quite hard to actually pour your heart out when writing. It's very vulnerable, and in this world and in this world of social media and society of social media, we don't really want to portray the ugly, we just want to portray the good. And that's why I think the vast majority of contemporary art or literature specifically is very empty of actually true meaning, which I think you can see in Bunny over here. At least that's what I saw. Maybe I'm just completely wrong and I'm just projecting. It could very possibly be, but yeah, that's how I saw Bunny. And I would say that I would give Bunny a 4 out of 5. I think I haven't given a 4 out of 5 in a long time. So this book is good. Like, if you like horror, if you like gore, if you like to be confused about what the fuck is going on, this book is for you. 100%. that's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video, or that you, if you have read Bunny, that you enjoyed it as much as I do. If you haven't, please don't get put off by the horrible summary that I did, and actually read the book. It's really interesting. I really enjoyed it, as you might know already. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Please follow me on my social media if you like, or if you have any good recommendations that match this aesthetic, please put it on my comments or tell me on my social media. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.